point.
10 seconds and counting.
Starlink satellites also continuing to look healthy. Why don't we listen in and watch terminal count?
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
Seconds into flight, Falcon 9 successfully lifting off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying those 60 Starlink satellites into orbit. This particular booster lighting up the Florida coast for a 7th time. Now, we just began throttling down those Merlin 1D engines for maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q. That's the point when the stresses on the vehicle are the highest from the combination of the vehicle speed and the density of the atmosphere.
Max Q.
And now that we're through the point of maximum dynamic pressure, the loads on the vehicle, the structural loads, are going to drop off as the density of the atmosphere continues to decrease. And Falcon 9 continuing to speed up. We're about a minute away from 3 events. First of those is main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's where we'll shut off those 9 Merlin 1D engines. You can actually see the plume expanding from them on your camera. We shut those down.
Engine chill started.
In preparation for stage separation. That's where the first and second stages will separate from each other. First stage continuing on a parabolic arc to make its way back to the drone ship, while the second stage continues on to the third event, second engine start number 1. We actually just heard the call out there for MVAC chill-in beginning. So during that third event, second engine start 1, we'll ignite the Merlin vacuum engine that'll propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit. And we chill in those turbo pumps with liquid oxygen just to get them ready for ignition.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Left-hand side of your screen.
Ignition.
First stage separating, second stage ignition. Love that green glow from the TTEB ignition. Both vehicles back on their way. Coming up shortly, we'll expect to see fairing deployment off of the second stage. Look for that on the right-hand side of your screen.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Beautiful shot there of those Starlink satellites. Finally getting to see space directly. Now that we're outside of the atmosphere, we don't need those fairing halves anymore, so we'll jettison back to Earth to recover them. As a reminder, we do have our recovery ships, Miss Chief and Ghost Searcher, waiting at the Atlantic to scoop up both of those fairing halves.
On the left-hand side of your screen there, we saw the very last remnants of night lights visible off the Florida coast. It was a pretty awesome sight there as Falcon 9 lifted off. Now there we can see second stage with a healthy glow there on the MVAC engine. As second stage heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, the first stage will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. Now, if you happen to have followed along with our most recent launch on this past Saturday, where we launched out of Vandenberg Air Force Base, We performed 3 maneuvers in that instance because we were returning to launch site where we were landing the first stage back on land. Tonight, we are landing on the drone ship, as Shiva said before, of course, I still love you. So we only need to perform 2 maneuvers because we are continuing the arc trajectory of the first stage. So that first burn is the entry burn, and we will reignite 3 of the 9 M1D engines at the base of the first stage. And this will help to slow that stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. And then the second burn is the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to make a soft landing
on a nominal
on
trajectory.
the drone ship. So we heard there that the vehicle's on nominal trajectory. That's good news there. At this point in time, the first stage has reached apogee and is now starting its trip back down to the ocean. Our drone ship is parked a couple hundred miles off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. It is, as you saw, a nighttime launch, and unfortunately, we can't really see anything. So we don't have very good first stage footage to show you at this point in time. But we will bring that back in once we get some landing burn action, re-entry burn action. Checking in on second stage, everything continues to look good. The 60 Starlink satellites that are on board today are joining the constellation of nearly 900 that we've already placed on orbit. These satellites are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to folks like us here on Earth. And this is especially helpful for places where good internet is hard to access. First stage is continuing to coast, and it uses nothing but grid fins for that steering, as well as occasional nitrogen gas bursts for attitude control.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
So on your left-hand side of the screen, yes, we will see the entry burn beginning.
Entry burn startup.
And entry burn has begun. And this will last for about another 20 seconds. Again, this is the first of 2 maneuvers that the first stage will perform tonight.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And shutdown of first stage entry burn. So
Stage
that
2
burn
continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
That burn was designed to slow the booster down significantly as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The next maneuver will be the landing burn, and it is the final one, where we reignite just one single Merlin engine to make a soft landing on top of the drone ship. As we mentioned earlier, this is the 7th.
Stage 1, entry transonic.
We just heard that the booster is now transonic as it is re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. As I was saying, this is the 7th successful launch for this booster, and that will make this the 7th recovery attempt. Everything's continuing to look good there on the second stage. The
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
MVAC engine has begun to throttle
Stage
down.
1, landing burn startup.
There we heard the call out that landing burn has begun, so we should see that come into the screen here just momentarily.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
Landing legs have deployed. Here it comes. All right.
Nominal landing confirmed.
And for the 7th time, this Falcon has landed. This marks our 61st successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage.
And we have Seco.
And as the smoke clears, we can get a good view there. And we just heard the call out that we had Seco 1, or second engine cut off 1. So at this point in time,
Insertion.
And there we heard the call out that we have good orbit for that second stage. So now that stage 2 is, it's going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes. During this time, it will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time as they deploy. So we're going to take a quick break here, but we will be returning at T plus 14 minutes, so stick around.
Expected loss of signal, Cape. Acquisition of signal, Newfoundland. Loss of signal, Bermuda.
Welcome back to our webcast for our Starlink launch today. Now, if you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff at 9:13 p.m. Eastern Time, successfully recovered our first stage for the 7th time. That's a first time for us. And you're currently looking at a live view of the second stage in a nominal orbit around planet Earth. We're coming up on deployment of the Starlink satellites. You can see the stack of those on your screen in just about 10 seconds. Now, over the course of the break, we began spinning the second stage along its central axis. That's to give those Starlink satellites a little bit of momentum upon separation. Looks like we have a visual there.
Starlink deploy confirmed.
And call out of confirmation of Starlink deployment. So those 60 Starlink satellites gently floating away from the second stage. And because of the spin on the second stage, they'll start to space themselves out. Soon they'll deploy a solar array that they have on board, and then over the next few days and weeks, they'll distance themselves out further using an onboard ion thruster to make their way to an operational orbit about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface.